All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to a really special day today. I'm Suzanne Carawan. I'm with FCA Olentangy, and I'm here with Coach Jared Mills. And this is part of the Columbus Foundation's Big Table Talk. Where Big Talks we're going to talk about community, youth, engagement, health and wellness, etc. And it's really about everything that parents want to know of middle school athletes, right? And we want our athletes to be out there and as healthy and as vibrant as possible. So I'm excited to kick off this portion with Coach Jared Mills. Coach, you want to tell us a little bit about you? You can go your coach or your Mister side, whichever you want to go, your teacher, your
Sure.
coach hat.
Hey, teaching is teaching, whether it's basketball, cross country, track, or eighth grade social studies. They're just different classrooms. So I've been in Olentangy for it's my 25th year in Olentangy. I've been teaching eighth grade American history for most of that time. I've taught some English as well. I've coached high school cross country and track and field at Olentangy Liberty High School. I've coached, I'm still coaching basketball at Liberty Middle School. Daughter is in seventh grade at the middle school, so it's exciting having my a kid of my own in the school of 1,000 kids. So that's been pretty rewarding. And I've been married for 25 years and life is good. And I really appreciate you having me on today.
Sure, you've got some creds. You've done some stuff,
Done
right?
a few things.
Done a few
That's,
things.
I
So,
could go more, but I have to stay humble.
so I'd
Right.
say let's just start with this. I mean, because you have such a good view, and I think that especially for many parents, and we're going to be really candid and honest on this kind of discussion here, this table talk. A lot of parents, middle school is a very unique time because you've lost the really baby elementary school years, and you're not quite yet at that high school. It's this in between the tweeners, right? And there's a lot going on physically, emotionally, friends, etc. So now, from your viewpoint, having done this so long, what do you see as the top three challenges that your students are really facing?
So I'm going to start from the beginning. When I was in school, elementary school, lots of fond memories, high school, enjoyed it, and there's lots of high school that I would do over again if I could. Just it's a very high school and college are very special times. I can't say that so much about my middle school experience. Not that it was bad. It was just like you just alluded to. It's just a kind of a unique time in your life where you're going through a lot of emotional, mental, physical changes, and the middle school years are just a little different. And so when I decided to become a teacher, I really wanted to focus in on, for me personally, impacting the middle school student athlete in the unique ways in which they need impacted. So I think about your question, like what three challenges? I think there's so many different things today with social media and such that we can point to that makes things a little more challenging. But I think there are some commonalities too when we were in middle school. I mean, I've been teaching for 25 years, so you know how long it's been since I've been in middle school, but there's some differences. Number one, I think your friends change a lot when you're in middle school because it's the first time you're getting involved in school sports, school theater, drama, music. You're changing classes, which you don't do in elementary school typically. So your relationships change from being in elementary. Oftentimes, your best friends just the kids that live on your street. You go to middle school, now you're meeting a lot of new kids, and especially here in Olentangy, where 3 elementary schools feed into my middle school. So I think challenge number one is just kind of finding your way socially and finding out making new connections and meeting new friends and maybe some old friends from elementary you're maybe not quite as close with and sometimes those struggles. So one is that social piece. I think academically the rigor is more significant in middle school. We have students by the time they're in eighth grade that could potentially taking Spanish one, French one, German one, geometry. Some are doubling up in math. You get into those after those first 2 months of sixth grade, and your expectation with regards to how much homework you're doing and the level of reading, and there's grades. It's not just standard report card. In elementary school, it's standards. It's you met the standard, you're progressing, or you didn't meet. Now you're getting A's and B's and C's and trying to figure out what that means. So you have social changes. You have the academic rigor that's a lot different, and then you're kind of separating a little bit from mom and dad because you're trying to become this young
Mhm.
adult. And your parents who have been working with you for 10 years, up until 11 years, up until you get to middle school, they might be struggling too with, okay, I have this like little adult now, went from this elementary school kid where I'm packing their lunch and, you know, making their bed to now that you're the parents giving some different chores to the child. Like it's, that they're having more responsibilities around the home. They're trying out for sports teams. They're maybe not home as much because, as the young middle schooler, you're riding your bike to your friend's house and you're going to get ice cream over the summer. So, kind of that separation in a healthy way. You usually
Mhm.
want it to be healthy from your parents is a big change too. So, I think about challenges. Your landscape of your friends is changing, the academic rigor changes, and your relationship with your parents is changing, and that's all happening sixth, seventh, and eighth grade. So it's a lot, and sometimes for anybody who's ever had a middle schooler, some
Yeah.
days are they're all amazing. I'll just say that some days are just more challenging than other days because those changes are happening.
I'd say roller coaster, but yes, it's a
Yes, yes,
it
roller
is a
coaster.
journey. That is for
Yes,
sure.
yeah.
I think that I think that's a three incredibly salient points. And one of them I'll just say is that since we're talking about sports in particular, I do think that now that you say it, well, one, I think it's very typical. Your child all of a sudden is not the same chatty child and tells you everything as before and becomes much more inner, looking inwards, et cetera. And sometimes, could be pouty and belligerent and, yet then euphoric, and you get the whole, end to end kind of pieces of it. And then in the midst of that, to your point, you went from probably in elementary school having what, one to two teachers and a PE teacher,
Mhm.
maybe some, to now having a
Right,
series of teachers all day and having coaches, like real coaches,
right,
not that maybe
right.
you didn't have real coaches. It depends what sport you're playing when you're younger,
So
but
the
now you've
coaching is
got
different for
coaches.
sure.
The coaching's different, and you're
Yeah.
now perhaps playing for your school, right? So
Mhm.
you've got some other kind of stuff in there. So where do you see the role then, for you saying you're now the teacher and now this coach? How do you see the kids changing in how they're relating to you? How, because that's a good point. Because a lot of the mom and dad thing, I think, shifts over to the coaches, and
Yeah.
what does that look like in a healthy relationship?
So I'm gonna jump into my high school coaching. So I coached cross country and track and field at Liberty, Olentangy Liberty for 16 years, and it was a blessing. I just had a great experience, and I think in as a coach, and I think in regards to that question, one of the big things is every single season I would have a parent call me and say, "Can you talk to my son because I know he'll listen to you."
Mm,
And that was, as my daughter's getting older, I'm starting to understand that better, because the parents have experience and wisdom that they want to share with their child that they know will help, but it's mom and dad, and in my case, I coached, boys cross country, and I did coach some girls in track too, but for the boys, like they're trying to make their own path, carve their own way. I don't want to listen to mom and dad. Not that they don't ever, right? But just there's certain things that I know mom, I know dad, I got it. But when coach says it, it's like biblical truth. It's like oh,
yeah.
coach said, and that has power. So think if you're a coach or you're in that type of leadership role, you need to really take that seriously because what you say does have a lot of power. So you want to be speaking life and speaking truth into kids. And I also coach middle school basketball. So I coach girls middle school basketball, and I coach seventh grade. And for seventh grade, that's the first school sport a lot of those girls are going to play.
Mm,
And that's the first time they're going to have to go through potentially a cut where they have to go to school the next day. Because a lot of travel teams, if you don't make your travel soccer, your travel basketball, your travel softball, whatever, a lot of times you don't go to school with those kids or the ones that most kids at school don't know. Whereas
yeah, it's a good point.
in, yeah, whereas when you're trying out for your school team, they know, kids know if you're
Hmm.
trying out, and then they know if you made it and know if you didn't, and you still got to go to school the next day. So being able to coach kids through that process and how to treat your teammate that made the team and celebrate their success, and also treat your teammate who didn't make the team and show some empathy and treat them like you would want them to treat you if you were in that situation. Because we're all, there's no linear path. Progress is not linear. You're going to have
Yeah,
make some cuts in life, and you're going to get cut sometimes in life. So it's their really first step into navigating that field and experience. So that's kind of the high school and middle
that's
school
what I
differences.
mean. What a great point, because let's also talk about that the fact that you. So I have two questions on this one. One, what's your advice to parents going through this process? Because I think one thing I found as being excuse me, a mother and raising student athletes is sometimes the parents are kind of put on the side, and like we're trying to make separation between the parent, the player, right, and the coach, because we need to have a relationship between. I'm a proud graduate of Positive Coaching Alliance. We need that triangle, that healthy
Yeah.
triangle.
Yes.
But at the same time, the parents are still sitting there, and I think a lot of times they don't know the role to play, and I don't think a lot of times they're equipped with the right skill sets. So let's talk about that, because when your kid is going out there and trying out, your heart's out there too.
That's
Hopefully you're not at the tryout. Hopefully don't
right.
go to the trial. It's my
Yeah.
advice. Don't go to the trial. But
That's
you're
good
going to
advice.
deal with you're going to deal with the
Yes.
aftermath of whatever else is coming your way. And so, it's okay to be affected by that. I think sometimes parents, I mean, I do think I know they struggle. It's one of the reasons we want to
Hmm.
do this. So what's your
Hmm.
advice to parents going through to support? That's true. I'm going into now seventh grade. Typically, you're starting school sports. So, what's your advice to parents on that kind of middle school journey of how to support their athlete in a healthy way?
Three things. So communication is key, and I'm going to say that as a coach, I need to be communicating with parents. So, for example, I have an athlete meeting tomorrow with all the girls trying out. So our tryouts are Friday of this week. So I have a meeting with all of the athletes, and I've already sent my meeting presentation to all the parents of the athletes, so they understand. They need to know what's coming. So from a coaching standpoint, I want to communicate as much as possible as to what's to be expected, so that the parents aren't caught off guard. So any coaches listening, communicate. It is really important to communicate. And for the parents, I think number one is listen and don't give advice too quickly. I think eventually there'll be that time. But if your son or daughter gets in the car, give a couple of scenarios. If they get in the car and they don't make the team, nothing you say in that moment is going to be helpful, because they're dealing with, I didn't make the team. And they're obviously, your son or daughter better. I'm kind of generalizing, but through my experience, like they're dealing with, something they're perceiving as failure. I don't call it failure, because there's going to be other opportunities, and keep working, keep trying to get better, what did the coach tell you to work on? So,
Mhm.
but they're seeing it as failure because they didn't make the team, and they're thinking about the social implications of that and the reflection on their own identity as, oh, I'm not good enough. So as a parent, just be there, listen, kind of gauge, do they want to talk? Do they not? Kind of follow that, because eventually they will.
Mhm.
And when they do want to talk about whatever situation, then be ready to talk. Just be ready, because I think we're, as parents, and I know I'm guilty of this at times. We just want to fix everything, but we don't. Sometimes that's not what needs to happen. Just listen, be there, be ready. If they want to cry, just let them cry. Just be there. And then on the flip side of that, good things are going to happen too. They run a great race, they make a great play, they get in the car, and they usually want to talk about those things. Again, just listen, because I do think as parents, oftentimes we want to step in and share because we think it's helpful, and we do have wisdom. But in that moment, for your son or daughter, it's probably not going to be helpful. So your communication really is going to be read the room, read your son or daughter. So that's a big thing. Um, what now I'm trying to go back to the question. What was the question? I'm
Oh,
drawing a
just
blank.
tips for parents of
Yeah,
navigating through. Yeah.
that's right. Thank you. And the other thing is create opportunity the best you can. You can't want it more than they do. I think sometimes that becomes a frustration because you look back on your own experience and you think, well, I can provide all of these opportunities that I didn't have. Why don't they take advantage of that? And that can be very frustrating. This is their story. It's not your story. It's their story. So provide the opportunities, let them know what's available, let them know what's not available, and let them know that you have their back. You're going to support them 100%. But ultimately, they have to make the choice. That's as how bad they want it, and it's hard because their definition of hard work will change over time. And your definition, I'm 49-year-old dad, coach,
That's a great
teacher,
point. Great
husband.
point.
Like how I view hard work now
Yeah.
is different than when I was 12.
Yeah. That's
And,
a great point. They're
you know,
figuring that out.
they're
I mean,
figuring it out.
they're starting to test their mettle, right? Like
Yes.
they're just at the kind of the beginning journey of it.
Yeah. And every kid's in a different spot. So I ran cross country and track and field at the University of Toledo. And I even think when I got there, in high school, I was like, oh, I'm pretty good. And then I got to college. I was like, I'm not as good as I thought I was. So sometimes
Everybody's good. Yeah. That's
yeah, everybody's good. So
comeuppance. Yeah.
I thought I was working hard going into the season and then my freshman year. And then there's these juniors and seniors. And I'm like, wow, I didn't even know that was possible. And so I had to redefine that even at 18, 19 years old. And then even as a teacher, I keep learning. So long-winded way to say communicate, but the first step of communication is listening and let them write their own story. Be there, provide opportunities, but ultimately they have to make that decision as to what they want to do and don't want to do. Because if you just keep pushing them into it, not that's a see. I could talk forever on this, Suzanne. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
you want to encourage, you don't want to push because there's a difference there too. Yeah, I just
There
think
is. Yeah.
with my daughter, I want to keep encouraging. She plays basketball. I want to keep encouraging that and creating those opportunities and getting involved in that. But if I push, then she's going to push back. So it's kind of finding
Mhm.
that
She's gonna
line,
rebel.
because you
Yep.
don't want your kids got to do chores. You don't want them to be lazy. They
Right.
have to do things.
But
Um, but
But I
finding,
think, I think you bring up an important point because there's somewhere right along, and it's right about that sixth to seventh grade transition, I think. And because I always think the middle schools can do a lot more than a lot of times parents think they can, right? They can handle a lot. They're, not
yes.
everything, but I mean, you need to navigate with them. But I mean, you need to start developing that self-sufficiency in them. And I think that that's a very critical age because I know what I used to say to my sons, and I would say things like, look, I already went through seventh grade, right? I passed seventh grade math. This is your work. It can't be my
Hmm.
work. Whatever you do in the field, that's your body of work that you're developing. You can quit whenever you want. If you don't want to do it, this is up to you. It has to be your choice. I can't do the work for you. That's not my
Hmm.
role. My role is to feed you, support you, drive you, pay for you, right? That whole thing. And then
Right.
the rest, it's got to be
Yeah.
you and you, right?
Yeah.
But giving them that space is incredibly difficult.
Yes. It
And
is.
I have
It
a
is.
concept. I have a concept called Mama Bear Tiger Teacher, and we either want to go in and take care of it for them, and fix it, right? Or we want to go in and take out anybody in their path so that they can do that. And being able to let go of that is something I think is uniquely in those middle school years, and it is so painful
Yeah.
because it's also super intense. Because let's take your first seventh grade basketball game. It's the first time now you got parents watching the team, right? The kids that are
Yeah.
playing, whatever. You've got the cheerleaders there. I mean, you've got all the social pressure for not only what's happening on the court, but what's happening in the stands, right? It's like your first kind of big arena time. It's a lot of
Yeah.
pressure.
Yeah. And I will add to that. I've been in middle school for a long time. Kids are resilient. They are very resilient. I think parents underestimate, and I say this with love to the parents that are listening, you underestimate how resilient your child is. Let them
Mhm.
fail. Let them fail. If they're struggling with their math homework, let them struggle. Not that we can't help with homework, right? There's a balance, you know, your kid, but let them fail because they are resilient. I have seen in 25 years in Olentangy, I have seen struggle with math homework, but I've also seen family tragedy, you know, without getting into any more details than I
Hmm.
need to. I've seen some bad stuff that happens every, you know, it's just kids, man, they are, just to use that word again, so resilient. And
Built
they,
to do hard things. Yeah.
yeah, they are. And I think if we intervene too much, we kind of take some of that resilience away from them. And we want to, again, I think you said it really well. You're supporting, driving them places, paying for their stuff, you know, feeding them, clothing them, making sure they have a house, you know, shelter. But like I said before, let them write their story because they will surprise you. I mean, some of the kids I've had over the years in the classroom and coaching, like I've been like, wow, you're teaching me.
Well, I'll tell you, I feel like I'm not done. I've run the race though. I mean, I got both kids graduated. When they both walked across get their high school graduation, I was like, okay, I've run the race for this piece of it, right? I've gotten to this
Yeah.
far. And I will tell you, I've seen so many kids. This is my advice to their parents. Would you rather them fail in seventh grade and figure out some hard lessons, or would you rather do that in 11th grade? And worse, would you rather do it at college? Right.
Yes.
And I've
Yes.
seen that happen so much where the parents have so protected them and done the work for them and all these things and intervened at everything. And the kid gets to college and they get to these great schools and get in these programs and then they just fall apart. And it is devastating for me to watch that because they have not been had the opportunity. And yes, it's scary to let go. It is
It
scary
is.
for sure.
It is.
Right. And they're going to mess up. Right.
Yeah.
And you're going to also intervene when you shouldn't. But I mean, it's just to your point, it's finding that balancing act. But
Yeah.
they're built to do tough stuff. It's amazing what they
They
can
are.
do when you
Yes.
give them that space.
Yeah. Yeah. I
But
agree.
it's also hard as hell.
It is.
I'm just going to say it again. So
Yeah.
that kind of comes to the whole thing about then faith. So where
Yeah.
faith. So let's talk about faith and the role within that middle school student athlete, right? And what you do there and how do you see the effects? And I'd love to know if you see kind of the difference between the kids that have the faith, the kids that don't have faith. How does that work for you?
Sure. So I've been a leader for Fellowship of Christian Athletes in Olentangy since 2003, so 22 years, and I was involved in high school, and I was involved at the University of Toledo as well. So FCA has been a really big part of my life, and the real short part of my story is it was elementary school principal who introduced me to FCA, and that's where the truth of Jesus was introduced to me for the first time, and that when I accepted that truth, it completely changed my life. I mean, just salvation in Christ, like game changer. Not eternally a game changer, but also as an athlete and a student because it changed my perspective on everything that I did. Because your sport's going to disappoint you, um, your parents are going to disappoint you, and sometimes your kids are going to disappoint you. Your friends are going to disappoint you. That's just part of life. Jesus never disappoints you. He never, I mean, he won't. And so once I understood that, it changed my relationship with my parents, with my friends, as with my sport. And I've seen that now leading FCA since 2003. So it's been 22 years. And I ran a FCA team study when I coached cross country as well. And the athletes, that just created a culture on our team. These athletes loved not I'm not to say loved love they loved because it's past, but they still love each other because they had a shared mission that was greater than just running a 5K race.
Mm.
And I see that in the middle school because the FCA huddle, school huddle that I runs at the middle school. And so, I see these girls that are, for my basketball team that maybe play basketball. It's a sense of my identity is not found in this, how many points I scored or the final outcome of the game, because I guarantee you this is what happens. And I tell my girls this: after your game, you're going to go to school the next day and they're going to ask you two questions. Did you win? And how many points did you score? And you're going to get asked that question so many times that your identity is going to become, did we win? And how many points did
Mhm.
I score? And the reality is, sometimes the best game we play all year, we might lose because there's some good teams out there and we're a good team. And sometimes things don't go your way. There's things that you can't control and can't control. And sometimes the best game you'll play, you might not score any points. But you might be a lockdown defender. You might distribute the ball well. When you're on the bench, you might be bringing a ton of energy. And you might encourage one of your teammates who just missed 5 shots in a row. And you didn't score. Man, did you impact that game? So I guess the final thought of that is your identity's got to be in something bigger than the time on the clock or the scoreboard of a basketball game. And through FCA and in Christ, that's what I found. And I had, it didn't necessarily mean that I was faster when I got, when I was running, but it did mean I ran with more purpose, and
Mm.
the anxiety behind my races was significantly less because like, all right, Lord, you got this. I'm going to go compete as hard as I can. I'm going to be the best teammate I can be. I'm going to enjoy the process, and let's go win. But if we don't, you know, the
God's
sun will
got a
come up
plan,
tomorrow.
right? Like,
Yeah,
right,
I mean, I just
exactly,
think
right? Because God's
the
got a
Ohio,
plan.
yeah, the Ohio State football team just has been such an inspiration to me because,
Yeah.
yeah, they lost to Michigan last year. Sorry to bring that up, but it seemed like everybody was down except the Ohio State football team.
Yeah.
And yeah, I didn't know it at the time, but
Right.
what are they doing? They're in the locker room. They have their coaches, and they're like, "Hey, let's get after this. Right? This does not define who we are. Let's go out and compete. We still got a chance to win a national championship." And they did. And that
Hmm.
was incredible. But even if they hadn't, it doesn't change that their mindset was, this does not define who we are. We in Christ, we are something greater. So let's go keep competing. Because like I said about middle schoolers being resilient, like sometimes you're gonna lose.
Hmm.
So if your identity is in that, well, what a miserable life. But
Mm.
if your identity is in Christ, okay, get back
And how
up.
fragile, right? What
Yeah,
fragile footing, because that
yeah,
means you're only up and down based on, what happens on the scoreboard.
yes,
And that's
yeah,
just incredibly, that's not unconditional love, right?
yeah, yeah. And that's who I was as an athlete prior to my junior year of high school. And that's where the biggest change I saw immediately was just my whole perspective. And so I think I became a better competitor because I
Mhm.
understood the purpose behind why I was competing. And it changed the way, and it changed the way I coach. Because we've had some tough losses and we've had some exhilarating victories. And
Mhm.
at the end of the day, Jesus is the same yesterday, today, and forever.
Mhm.
Whether those during those tough losses and those great victories, and even the mundane moments, because there's some practices that are, you try to bring it, but it's middle of the season and it's like, all right,
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
tired. I got papers
Yeah.
to grade at home. I haven't eaten dinner. You know, even in those mundane moments, like it's good to remind yourself
Tenacity. Sure.
there's a
Yeah.
purpose.
There's always a purpose there. Yeah.
Mm.
So I'd say just two comments, then we'll wrap up. But I would say that for the parents, here's my parenting tip too. Because I want to bring it out because you said something about it. But so much of parents, it tends to be just my experience and a lot of years of doing this. They tend to focus on, to your point, the scoring as well, right? Just like the kids do naturally. And so
Mhm.
my tip for my parent tip, actually learn the game, learn it, have it get on defense, cheer for the
Yeah.
defense, really learn defense. Don't just focus on offense and scoring. That's not
Yes.
what wins the whole thing. So actually
Yes.
learn the game and learn how to cheer correctly. And then that's my parent tip. And then the second one I'd say is goes back to your resiliency piece, which is that faith, that breakthrough you've had. I think everything you said just it just underpins the idea that having that faith helps to heighten that resiliency, which gives a more even keel, right? A more even
Yes.
keel kid. It kind of, the highs are not as high, lows are not as low, kind of
Yeah.
keeping it a little bit like it's going to be okay. That kind
Yeah.
of an idea.
Yeah. You're always coming back to the same space.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
it's a nice safe place to be. And I think
Yeah.
being loved is, it's a whole other, and to your point about, not all kids have, it would be nice if everybody had super functional homes when everything was all, copacetic all the time, but that's not always the
That's
reality. It's
no,
hardly ever the reality. So
right.
having that Jesus piece in there that's at home, that's a nice safe space, especially for middle schoolers, I think, to be able to go
Absolutely.
back and rely on.
Absolutely. Yeah, my I don't know how much time we have left. If I can share one more thought.
Sure, of course.
Okay. Yeah, so my parents divorced when I was in elementary school. I was 8 years old. So you talk about just my home
Uh,
life. Love my parents. Love my parents,
yeah,
but there were some struggles with that, right? There were some struggles, and that created some up and down, which is another reason why I think I was looking for something else, right? Because I had some instability at home. So
mm-hmm,
what could I control? And I learned that I really can't control much. you know,
mm-hmm.
um,
Yeah,
I think that was part of FCA. And talking about FCA was when I started attending FCA. I was like, oh, I don't have to be in control because God's in control. I just have to
yeah, good
trust.
point.
I just have to trust that He is, and then just go do the best I can. You
Do your
know,
role, right? Do your
yeah,
part. Yeah,
yeah.
that's
And
true.
that was very freeing. That was very freeing. And then your message about learn the rules of the game because your boys played lacrosse. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
assuming when they
A lot
started,
of basketball too. A lot of basketball, a lot of
yeah,
football, a lot of
basketball
keep
too.
going.
Yeah.
Yeah, oh yeah,
But,
a lot of basketball.
did you know much about lacrosse when they started?
I know nothing about lacrosse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think you saying that has power because you lived that. You had to learn a
Yeah.
game with your kids. Yeah, I think.
Well, we had some really good
Yeah,
coaches. I mean, to your point. Okay,
yeah.
here's my other parenting tip. We were, early on in lacrosse. A woman in an industry I worked in brought me into it, and she said, "Give it a shot. I think your boys will like it." And I think lacrosse is one of those sports somebody needs to bring you into because it's kind of foreign to a lot of people. You don't know it. Um, and then we had a real ringer of a coach to start with, and we had a couple bad ones, right? And the whole thing. And again, as the years got more competitive, I started realizing very early how important coaches were. And we have a very small family, and that's part of our story because it's really just my husband and I. Like we're just kind of like we restarted the whole clan. So we didn't really have. So I knew coaches needed to be a very close, along with teachers, a very part of the network I needed around my sons
Mhm.
to have this safe environment. So we were very particular. I mean, we really spent a lot of time being intentional about where and who we gave our sons to, if you will, right? We
Yeah.
really made
Yeah.
sure that they wanted to be with, amazing coaches. Now, sometimes you don't get to pick that. They're playing schools, sports, whatever.
Sure.
You get an awesome coach like and you hope to have those. But if you are playing club and league, I do think you as a parent, you've got some piece there to decide, is this the right spot for your,
Right.
son or daughter? And I think that that's really important too, because coaches make all the difference. I
Yeah.
think, they're
FCA has shared a quote by Billy Graham where he said, "Coach will impact more people in 1 year than most will in a lifetime." And I heard that quote,
100%.
yeah, many years ago, and I don't know the data on it, but it's this with my own experience of coaching cross country basketball and track. I've probably had 25 years. I don't know,
Hmm.
thousand. I had a ton of kids. I had a
Yeah,
ton
ton
of
of
kids
kids.
that have been in front of me and have listened to what I've shared. And that's why I take it so important. It takes so much responsibility and to value doing the right things as a coach because what you say will change lives. And you want to change those lives positively, and
Yeah.
pouring life into them. So
Well, it's
yeah.
a great point. And so I'd ask this question to you because we call in my own mind, this is my term. I call the coaches that you have before you get to like the professionally paid coaches that you're, whatever that might be, if that's club or league or collegiate or whatever. But I call those baby coaches, right? And those baby coaches are knowing your children at these formative years. And so they have an even bigger impact, I think,
Yeah.
because they're so impressionable. Those middle school years, you look at their little earnest faces and they're soaking it in. So how many of your people that you've coached, how many of them come back to you? How much use you as a touchstone over the years and they come back and
Oh, great question. So I actually just went to a wedding on Saturday of a former student and track athlete. So I've had
a
a
lot?
number of those. So that was fun and caught up with a number of former students and athletes that were at the wedding. So you get a lot of that, which is very rewarding. And so when I stepped down from coaching high school cross country, the coach that was one of my varsity assistants, that is now the head coach at Liberty High School, is also one of my former athletes. And yes, and one of his assistants is also one of my former athletes. And they come back, which is really, so those are just a few examples, but um, those are some examples, but it's really rewarding, is what I wanted to say. And you will sometimes not hear from, because they go to college and
Yeah.
we've lived that experience. But sometimes you'll get a phone call, hey coach, or a text message, hey coach, I'm in town. You want to go for a run? You want to get breakfast? And I did actually had a former athlete that just got his master's degree from Cal Berkeley, and I hadn't seen him in years, and he's not in town very often, and he reached out to me, and we got to have, we went to get some I'm not a coffee drinker, but went to a coffee shop and just caught up. So you hear from them a lot, and it's also encouraging because at times I'll run camps and I'll reach out to them and be, hey, can you come speak at this camp and share your experience? And they've always said yes. Sometimes they're doing virtual, maybe I had an athlete who's in the Air Force. So he graduated from Air Force Academy and was in New Mexico. And so he virtually streamed in and shared his kind of cross country story. And he was involved in the FCA as well. So it's one of there's a lot of rewarding parts. I will also say I've coached some Hall of Famers that are in our high school Hall of Fame, some All-Americans, state champions, all Ohio athletes, teams that have competed in the state tournament. When the athletes come back, they never talk about those things. And when I say never,
Oh, that's a
I
good
mean
point.
never. They always talk about, not that you want to have those goals because you want to stretch kids and you want to challenge them to think big. But the camps that we do, the fun practices, the tough workouts, the stuff that I say that I don't remember, but they remember, the
Yeah.
stuff
Yeah.
that they did, that they're like, coach, you won't believe what we did on that, all innocent stuff, but fun, high school kid stuff. That's all the stuff they talk about.
Yeah.
They do not, unless they're coming. The only reason I would retract the never is because sometimes I'll have them come speak, and I want you to talk about
Hmm.
what we did at the state
Sure.
meet and what you learned from that. So unless I'm prompting it, they're not talking about it. So there's a lesson in that too, just as a parent with your child, the experience and the process and the journey. I know you've probably heard the term, the process is the goal and the journey is the reward, but it's true, because just take it from somebody who's coached tons of athletes. That is what they remember and what they talk about. And that's when they don't build the relationship with their teammate at the state meet. They build the relationship on the process to get there. And that's what they remember. And I just had a bunch of former athletes that just ran the Columbus Marathon on Sunday,
Oh, wow.
and which is, being a cross country track coach, that's kind of a
Sure.
normal thing.
Yeah.
But they're texting me while during their training, hey coach, just wanted to ask you about this, or during the race. So as they were coming in, I was texting them, hey, congratulations on
That's
your
awesome.
race. And so you never really lose touch. You become a
Yeah,
part of their life.
that's true too.
You're not getting together
Good
on
point.
Christmas and
Yeah.
Thanksgiving, right? Because
But you
they're
kind
out
of
of your,
keep track of them. You kind of see where yeah, you
yes.
do. That
But
makes sense.
once you coach them, you're part of their life forever. And so since that's the case,
Yeah.
be good at it.
Yeah. Be good
Yeah,
at it. Yeah.
because
And
you
it
don't
is,
want to
it's a,
be a negative. Yeah, yeah,
yeah. Well, that's true. You've really seen the legacy then of your coaching at this point, which is amazing.
yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah, it's
thank you
good.
so much for joining us. I know
Thank you for letting
we're
me be
gonna,
long-winded. I get excited about this
oh my,
stuff.
God, we can come
Yeah,
back anytime and talk about this. You can
yeah,
look at centralohiofca.org, right? Thank you for
yeah.
Big Table for giving this opportunity. But yeah, please hit us up with questions. We'll love to have, we can keep this as a series because we love to have questions. And I know I get a lot of questions from parents, and parents feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn or Facebook or Instagram or any way you want. And we can have this as many times as Coach Mills here will say yes to
Oh,
doing so, which I think will
I
always
love
be
it.
the case.
Yeah, no, thank you for that was great. Thank you for having me, and thank you for what you do as well, because you're impacting coaches and teachers that are then impacting kids. So it's a direct line or an indirect line. I don't know. It works.
Let's
It
hope
works.
so. Yeah, let's hope
Yes.
so.
Yeah.
All
Well,
right.
thank
Well,
you.
thank you. God bless.
Thank you.